The morning my smart coffee maker blasted Billie Eilish at full volume instead of brewing my usual latte, I knew something was seriously wrong. This wasn't just a glitch, it was sabotage, and I had a pretty good guess who was behind it. 2 doors down, in our quiet cul-de-sac in Portland, Oregon, lived Susan Harper, the self-appointed queen of the Meadowview Homeowners Association. By October 2024, Susan had already declared my Wi-Fi router an eyesore that violated the neighborhood's so-called aesthetic code, despite her own tacky Halloween decorations still haunting her porch well into spring. But this was war. My entire network was down, security cameras offline, internet dead, even my fridge flashing a pathetic, disconnected error. I raced to the basement where my router sat, only to find it gone. Vanished. Wires snipped clean, no debris, no note, just a faint smudge of rose-scented hand cream on the fuse box. Susan's signature. Susan had been on a power trip ever since she snagged the HOA secretary role 6 months ago. She strutted around with a tablet, conducting landscape audits, and once, I kid you not, used a drone to photograph mailboxes for non-compliant paint shades. I'd flown under her radar by keeping my lawn at the regulation 2-inch height and painting my house in the HOA-approved sage green. But my router's antenna? Apparently, it was a crime against Meadowview's visual serenity. She tapped on my window at 6 a.m. last week to lecture me about it, her voice dripping with smug authority. I didn't think she'd stoop to theft, though. Big mistake. Here's the thing. Susan didn't know I'd installed a hidden backup module in my router after her last rant about electromagnetic hazards. That tiny chip had just enough power to ping a GPS signal when disconnected. So while she thought she'd won, I was tracking my router's location on my phone, watching a dot pulse right inside her house. I strolled over, taking my time, letting her sweat. When she answered the door in her signature pink tracksuit, her face caked in a green mask, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Hey, Susan," I said, cool as ice. "Missing a black box with blinking lights, maybe the size of your HOA rulebook?" Her smirk was pure defiance. "That thing was messing with my smartwatch," she said. "I took it for the neighborhood's safety." I raised an eyebrow. "So you broke into my basement and stole it? Without telling me, or, say, the HOA president?" She puffed up. "Leadership means tough calls. Wi-Fi's a luxury, not a right." I walked away before I said something I'd regret, but I wasn't done. Susan didn't realize she'd just handed me the keys to her digital kingdom. My backup module didn't just track location, it logged every connection attempt. And Susan, being Susan, had hooked up her entire setup to my router. Her phone, her tablet, even her HOA-issued doorbell camera. Thanks to an unpatched bug I'd left in the system, I now had a front-row seat to her online life. I could have felt bad, but all I felt was cold, hard satisfaction when I saw what she'd been Googling at 3 a.m. Let's just say it wasn't HOA regulations. She was also leaving fake Google reviews for the local bakery after they botched her cupcake order and arguing in Reddit threads under 3 different aliases. I could have leaked it all right then, plastered her secrets across the neighborhood group chat. But that's not how you take down someone like Susan. You let them climb higher, then yank the ladder. So I called an emergency HOA meeting. I'm not even on the board, but as a stakeholder in the local broadband co-op, I had the right to propose a policy change with enough signatures. It took me 5 hours, a pitcher of iced tea, and a poster board labeled Susan's Wi-Fi heist to get 25 neighbors on board. At the meeting, Susan waltzed in with her pink blazer and a stack of printed emails, ready to dominate. But my slideshow, How to Steal a Router and Tank Your Credibility, stole the show. Each slide showed her devices auto-connecting to my stolen router, complete with timestamps and GPS pings. Her jaw dropped, then snapped shut. "That's fabricated," she squealed, waving her papers like a white flag. I turned to the crowd. "If you think I hacked her iPad from 3 houses away, raise your hand." Silence. "If you think someone who stole my router and linked her whole life to it should explain herself, raise your hand." 25 hands shot up. Susan was speechless, a rare sight. I proposed suspending any HOA member caught tampering with private property like internet access pending a review. The vote was set for Thursday. Susan stormed out, her perfume trailing like a toxic cloud. But Susan wasn't done. The next morning, a fancy envelope was taped to my mailbox, sealed with a wax stamp like she was Napoleon. Inside, a violation notice claiming my router's signal violated a new HOA rule she'd rammed through, demanding $927.43 for signal pollution. Classic Susan, those random cents to make it feel official. She once fined a neighbor $6.82 for unauthorized garden gnomes. I wasn't mad. I was impressed. She was fighting like a cornered dictator, clinging to her throne of petty fines and lawn ordinances. But I'd already found a loophole in the HOA charter, a dusty clause allowing 3 homeowners to form an ethics committee if they had digital proof of board misconduct. I recruited Marcus, a retired Navy vet who despised Susan since she cited his wife for excessive holiday lights. Lena, a coder who once told Susan to reformat her entire attitude in a Zoom call. And Mrs. Clara, the 80-year-old who baked pies but got fined for overly festive wreaths. We met in Clara's cozy den, her dog napping as we reviewed the router logs and Susan's failed attempts to log into the HOA's admin portal from my stolen IP. Marcus growled, unreal. Lena just smirked. Let's burn it down. Susan escalated. On Thursday, hours before the vote, my smart thermostat was flagged as an unapproved environmental hazard. A city inspector showed up, looking baffled. This blocks a complaint magnet, he muttered, but cleared my system in 10 minutes. Still, it showed Susan's Reach City connections, bureaucratic weapons. The vote went 28-3 to suspend her. She whispered as she passed me. You think you're untouchable? I grinned. Safer than your search history. She flinched, then bolted. I thought that was the end, but Susan had one last card. A week later, a banner appeared at the neighborhood entrance. Stop cyber criminals from running Meadowview, with a blurry photo of me from the meeting, looking like a tech villain. A QR code linked to a website accusing me of data terrorism. She'd used HOA branding, claiming board approval, a lie that violated trademark rules. I sent a cease and desist and dropped a curated batch of her search history to the neighborhood Slack as Wi-Fi_warden. Queries like how to ban someone from HOA and erase bad Yelp reviews lit up the chat. By evening, the banner was gone, and Susan's reputation was toast. Then came the real bomb. Marcus texted me a screenshot of an email between Susan and her cousin, Ethan, a sketchy IT guy. She'd paid him to plant malware on my network keyloggers, packet floods, even a script to wipe my drives. His code mocked, "Enjoy your blank hard drive, nerd." Amateur stuff, but dangerous. It never breached my segmented network, but it was war. At the next HOA meeting, I showed the email, the Venmo payment, and a photo of Ethan leaving Susan's house. She collapsed into her chair, defeated. The board launched a formal inquiry, stripping her of all privileges. But Susan wasn't done. That night, my power cut outbreaker tampered, a copper wire jammed in. I set up a motion-activated camera in a birdhouse. At 2:19 a.m., Susan crept into my yard, dressed like a budget spy, snapping photos of my recycling. I sent the footage to Clara, who laughed so hard she dropped her tea. The neighborhood turned on Susan. Kids made memes. Someone swapped her HOA parking sign for Wi-Fi_warden's one fan. She called a recall election, spinning herself as a victim of my cyber attacks. I countered with Unity Bash, a block party with food trucks and a projector looping her greatest hits. Susan withdrew her candidacy and listed her house. Then I found it. A file, last_resort.zip, in an encrypted folder. Inside, a manifesto from Susan, threatening to leak dirt on neighbors' party photos, old tickets if I didn't back off. The final video was her, raw and unraveling, admitting she'd gone too far, but blaming the neighborhood's obedience culture. She called me dangerous, but said I'd made people laugh again. Don't become me, she warned, before the screen went black. I deleted it. Not out of fear, but because I wouldn't play her game. Susan moved out a week later, leaving my router on my porch with a note. Internet is a right. I laughed, reset the network to long live Wi-Fi_warden, and left it open. My coffee maker hummed, brewing a perfect cup. So what do you think? Was Susan a petty tyrant who got what she deserved, or a broken woman pushed too far by a neighborhood that never accepted her? Should I have leaked her final video to show her humanity, or was burying it the right call? And how far would you go to protect your Wi-Fi and your peace? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories where the underdog flips the script.